Welcome back to our podcast of AIX. Today we have an expert, as usually. This time it is Dr. Aaron, who normally lives in Dubai, but in the moment he's in Chicago. Very, very happy to have you here, Aaron. Maybe you can start with a few words about yourself.
Good to meet you, and it's an honor to be on this podcast. I'm trained as a physician. I'm specialty trained in pathology, which is undergoing a lot of transformation in terms of digital transformation as well as artificial intelligence that we use for a lot of our daily work. I've worked in Dubai for the last 20 years. My career has spanned work in the USA as well as Dubai. I've been practicing for over 30 years, and I also am involved in training, accreditation, and quality activities. I've been involved not only as a pathologist, but also in hospital administration, as a CMO, COO, and a lot of interim assignments. So I've seen a wide spectrum of needs in the healthcare space, and I'm very excited about the potential for AI going forward in affecting how we work smarter, how we work more efficient, and to be able to leverage AI technology, especially to different resource settings. So obviously in Dubai, in the GCC, we have unique opportunities, but there's a larger region in the catchment of what is Dubai that will benefit from AI as well.
Absolutely agree. When did you first time come in contact with AI technology? Do you remember this day when you first saw any technology with AI?
So AI has been around for quite some time. I think the current status of AI has been one of exponential growth. It's almost like a rocket on jet fuel right now because of a lot of the technical support in terms of the hardware, the chips that are available, the software, and the computing power. So when you think of where we are in AI, it's like the early days. Am I allowed to use proprietary names? You know, like the early Apple iPhones. We're just at the beginning of these revolutions. And all of these technical advances really depend on what we often refer to as Moore's Law. And that was the law that governed the development of chips. They get faster, they get less expensive, and so you get into this virtuous cycle where every year in 18 months, the computing speed gets faster, the applications increase, and we're just at the beginning of that. So my venture into AI actually was not a straight line. I've been involved in IT projects since my time in Dubai, installation of hospital and laboratory systems. So that's really one of the backbones. And I've always had a love for working with people in the healthcare system, helping to make their jobs easier, working with technology, so the technology platform, and also I love to tinker with processes. An inefficient process that needs improvement is an area that I just love to get involved in. And I typically tell people once a process and once a project is set into motion, and so, you know, we often talk about it as a train running on the tracks. Once the tracks are set in place, then oftentimes I'm ready to move on to the next project. So I started with this, and even though we had AI in the laboratory space as early as 25 years ago, some very early phases of what we call neural network and network analyses, we're just seeing a wider spread and use of AI, especially as it applies to image, text, what we call large language models, LLM. It's really exciting, that space, because in the early days, unless you put in a lot of work, a lot of time, and convert especially images into mathematical equations or computational or digital platforms. So turning a color photo, for example, into a series of zeros and ones, you don't have any way to analyze that data. But now the computer can do a lot of that hard work for us and the heavy lifting. So it's an exciting time.
Absolutely. So you are coming from healthcare industry. If you had to name
Yes.
3, 4 use cases where you see AI really revolutionary when it comes to healthcare or medical sector. What would these 3, 4 use cases be?
Sure. So there's a lot of different ways in which AI can benefit healthcare. And healthcare has been always probably on the not the cutting edge, or definitely not what we call the bleeding edge of healthcare adoption. We tend not to be early adopters, but a lot of our work processes are similar to other industries. So we've benefited from the experience, for example, in banking, in hospitality, in even the airline industry. So from banking, we learned about financials and the work processing, setting up systems. In hospitality, our patients are our customers, and oftentimes they come back again. So when somebody shows up and they're Mrs. Jones or Mr. Abdullah or Miss Fatima, they want to be greeted, and they want us to know who they are, their history, and their preferences, their likes. This should not be a new experience every day. These are things in which AI can help us with what we call the patient experience, or PEX. So there's a lot of applications in that space. From the airline industry, we adopt a lot of their practices when it comes to safety, checklists, being high reliability. So those are lessons that we can learn. In terms of use cases, AI is already used in many different categories. In cancer care, which is a big part of my practice, matching patients with their specific treatment therapy based on their individualized tumor profile. That's already being done today using AI algorithms and finding the best outcomes for the patients the very first time. We also have seen some pretty mature eye or ophthalmology modules that screen for retinal diseases, early diabetes, and screen for those type of situation. There are also other products that affect the workflow of radiology and pathology service, making sure the study goes to the right expert and allocating the case, distributing the workflow, making sure it's most efficient in terms of workflow. So those are just some examples of early use cases of an AI in the wider healthcare enterprise.
So that means AI helps in research, but also in detecting illnesses. So the use cases are very wide. Yeah. So does it mean then that also, because there are a lot of illnesses, you already named cancer, where a lot of research is still to be done. Do you think that AI will speed up this research so that certain drugs can be found faster to cure illnesses which are not curable in the moment?
Great question. So AI has the potential to not only mitigate the risk of drug discovery, but it gives us options to do it in a wise and controlled fashion. So many people are excited about AI in this. So several years ago, I actually have a cousin. He works at Pfizer. I think I'm allowed to say this, but he actually, when he started studying some of the early areas of drug discovery, he went to a field that was called computational biology. And at that time, this was probably 35 years ago, we kind of looked at him and it's like, what is this? Because that field had not been defined. So he was on the cutting edge. He was actually in Silicon Valley at Stanford. That's where he got his PhD. And then since then, he's made a career out of computational biology. So these are people that basically model drugs based on computers, based on AI. So now we can layer it on many different ways. We have patient information. We can have large databases. We can match it with drug protocols, research protocols. We have a whole field of what's called in silico medicine. So these are modeling based on often public databases about specific gene targets, about specific, sometimes they're proteins that we don't even know the definition or what they're involved in, but we can match up and start to basically come up with the top 5, top 10 possible mutations that we should target and what's the most likely drug that's in development. And we can model these. There's another area that's called the digital twin, so in which we create virtual, or they're almost like avatars, but they're identical in capturing patient information. And so you can do basically the experiment, so to speak, of what would happen if you tested this patient on the medicine. And so you can run those scenarios. So this is the future. Some of it's happening now, and there's a lot of interest in the ability of AI to really make the drug discovery process much less expensive, quicker to market, and more efficacious the first time.
Do you also see that AI will help in the, let's say, patient care? Because I think it's a trend worldwide that the number of doctors and nurses is going down, so that there are not enough doctors anymore. So do you think that AI can somehow help in this, so that if there are human doctors missing, that AI can somehow take over those jobs where the doctors are missing in the moment?
Yeah, that's a great question. So AI will definitely transform the way patients interact with the healthcare system, as well as how the healthcare providers, they will do their and go about their daily work. So in the laboratory space, eventually probably 70 to 80% of the routine mundane tasks will be achieved with AI. We will affect the way that we do our work, daily work. It should make us more efficient. So oftentimes in my practice, we have to do additional studies, order additional and get more information before we can make a decision. All of that will probably be put on the AI engine. So by the time I see the information, I have one touch point. And then you talk about in terms of worker, healthcare provider distribution, and also we're seeing a decrease in workload. So the supply and demand of healthcare workers is probably going to be decreased supply for increasing demand of the patient needs. So that's going to be one way in which AI can really dramatically affect that. Already we've done some studies. One of my friends in Japan, his name is Andre Bishkov, he's done the workforce analysis for the global pathology supply. And so he's mapped out the hotspots where there's just not enough expertise per 100,000 or per million population. Well, AI and also the digital transformation, because our work is untethered, we can work from anywhere. I can work from Dubai, but see cases from Asia, from Europe, anywhere in the world. It can be done asynchronously, it can be done at the same time or synchronously. So it will dramatically affect our reach. It will affect the ability to get experts to see the most difficult cases, no matter where they are. And I believe it will also affect the financing model. It will be much more equitable over time. So those are some of the potentials of AI as we go forward in this evolution and the transformation.
Sounds very promising. So you say in the moment we are still at the beginning of the AI trend in healthcare. So how do you think it will continue? Where will we be in 5 to 10 years? What do you think the evolution will look like?
Yeah, super question. So up until about 2 or 3 months ago, I usually described it as making a quilt. I don't know if you're from a tradition in which people will make these bed covers. They're oftentimes to keep warm in cold weather. Sometimes they're just for decorations. So in parts of where I used to grow up in Pennsylvania, on the east side of the U.S., there's an area, and actually a lot of people came from Deutschland. The Pennsylvania Dutch. Yeah. We call them the Pennsylvania Dutch. So they're experts in making quilts.
I know the Amish people in Pennsylvania, those who are all in black with the horses. So, I once visited them.
Often they wear blacks, right, and they carry a very simple lifestyle, but they're also experts in creating quilts, and each quilt is generally made up of a panel, so many, many panels sewn together to make one large quilt and one large comforter or a blanket, so to speak. And about 2 months ago, I said, most of our AI experience will be like quilt making. There will be specific areas that we want to do. We're going to do cancer. Some of us will do longevity, which is an important theme going forward because it's very complex. Some of us will do what we call the non-chronic, non-communicable chronic diseases, diabetes. So it takes many years, a lot of risk factors. So AI will help impact those areas, but each location may have their specific use case, their best way of using and deploying AI, so it will look like a quilt. However, just in the last month or so, one of the big tech companies, and my colleagues have told me, several tech companies have developed a module that's basically are transformative. It's a game changer for pathology and imaging and diagnostics, because just like a lot of the current image recognition, facial recognition software, now many of the large tech companies are getting into healthcare. They're looking at our text, they're looking at our image, they're putting it all together. So there's some early cases where there's large databases, and some of my research friends are testing use cases, and they say it works great. It works in the first couple iterations and rounds because the database is so big. There's about 1 billion tiles of images, about 250,000 slides or patient information. These are called foundation models. So they can go from image to text in their text, in their test run. And then so if you put in your database, they can also learn over time, but very quickly go from image to text. So that will be what I will be presented with in the future. I will have text coupled with an image side by side and say, is this the text you want? So this is very powerful, and it will change how we do a lot of our daily work, certainly as pathologists, as diagnostician, anybody in healthcare that uses image or large textual types of instruments and databases will benefit from this application. It's going to be a rapid acceleration and game-changing platform using these foundation models.
Amazing. You are now talking, or you were talking about a lot of different projects going on anywhere in the world. Is there some coordination in the healthcare industry of all the different initiatives running there? Or is this all pretty random that UAE is probably doing the same what a certain healthcare organization in the US is doing? Or are there also some global initiatives where intelligent people are working together?
There definitely are alliances, there are global alliances. Many of them are academic. There are a lot of open source type of databases as well. There's a genomics one that researchers typically go to for genomics. I also do teaching in the medical school. A lot of our teaching uses public repositories of slide images, primarily for academic purposes. So some of them are well known. There are articles that are written about resources for medical education using digital pathology, using AI. So one of the frequent ones I use in my med school teaching comes from England. It comes from Leeds. They have one of the largest collections of images. So I usually tell people in an AI project, you can either build it yourself, you can borrow your data, or you can buy it. So those are kind of your three options. So you need to have large training sets to make it work, and then you need to have significant data to feed it in. If you don't, then you really need to be part of a work group. So we've always had a history of these type of working groups. We've done it for brain tumors, neurodegenerative diseases, which is an area of my interest. So things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and a lot of the brain degenerative diseases will benefit from these large working groups in which nobody has sufficient volumes or numbers of patients, but working together, we can achieve a lot more. So we see a lot of that cooperation across countries, across disciplines. Usually it's focused on specific themes, though.
So that means there's a great hope that all these nasty diseases you just named eventually could be healable thanks to AI.
Well, hopefully, one of the things that will happen is, especially in the chronic ones, we'll be able to have earlier detection, more sensitive detection, and behavioral changes. One of the areas, for example, for diabetes, I just had a recent talk with a company that works on AI. They're in cancer, but they also have a history of developing games. And we know that in healthcare, actually, there's a big theme of what we call gamification. So to modify people's behavior through a gaming platform. So we can provide this, if we can develop a proof of concept or a platform or a module for patients, we may be able to affect the way people address their, sugar, their metabolic issues. So it prevents them from getting early diabetes, and all the consequences. So now we know a lot of these metabolic syndromes, they overlap. Liver disease, cardiac disease, diabetes. We're treating it kind of as a triad, this whole metabolic region. Longevity is the same thing. Alzheimer detection, again, it's the same thing. We have medicines, we have new drugs that are FDA approved, but they're not useful once the current detection of Alzheimer's or cognitive loss is seen. But with AI and some of the new diagnostics, we are hopeful that we can diagnose it at a time where some of these new drugs will be able to intervene and prevent the development of deposits, of plaques, of some of these Alzheimer's causing processes. So we need to be more sensitive in our detection, earlier detection of chronic disease states, affect and change the way people behave in terms of either their diet, their lifestyle, what they're, whether they do Sudoku or brain stimulating activities, do more exercise. We already have AI modules that help people do exercise or give them feedback on their physical therapy. So some of those are already in the market.
Amazing. Sounds very, very promising. I hope that all these developments go as fast as Gen AI is coming in the private life. So I hope that also in the medical area, AI will really have a lot of breakthroughs. This would be really, really great for our society. What do you think, especially when we talk about medicine, do you also see any downsides of AI, so that probably there are some misuses of AI when it comes to healthcare or to humans? Is there anything what you are personally afraid of?
I think some of it is fear, but some of it is fear of the unknown. But we've always been able to navigate these spaces. Obviously, in medicine, we have concern about the patient, their privacy, access to information, and then there's also the human interaction. So how much of that will be lost or changed in terms of the human touch, so the art side of medicine and not just what we can put into science or we can automate processes. In terms of the ethics of AI, the machine-human interaction, those are areas that we still need to explore, because with AI, there will be possible loss of some autonomy. And in terms of patient autonomy, their ability to say, you know what, I don't want to go down this pathway, even though I know the risk of choosing an alternative. So how do we preserve the human autonomy, the self-directed nature, and in the end, the patient still controls their health care journey?
Amazing. How is it in your private life? Do you also are a big fan of AI when it comes to your private life? You also work with ChatGPT, or you just use AI technology more in your healthcare applications?
I do use some AI. I tend to be kind of bridging, so I'm more of a digital migrant than a native. So I grew up and had to learn some of the languages. I'm not proficient at ChatGPT, but I've used it in some of my, letter writing. I haven't used it to actually issue a report, but we've used it in some settings, and it's a very helpful aid. I've had other friends show me the examples of reports or essays written on ChatGPT. I also have a couple daughters that are in graduate school. I haven't asked them if they've used it for their thesis or papers. I hope not. I hope they're doing original work. But I imagine ChatGPT can also scour the database to make sure there's not any duplication of material that's happening.
It's definitely true. Dr. Aaron, it was really, really nice talking with you. Thank you very much for your time, and you gave us a really, really great look inside the status of AI in the healthcare industry. This was, for me, really fascinating, and I'm very much looking forward to what is coming in the coming years.
Thank you. So if I can end with kind of a short
Yes,
story,
please.
I usually tell people. So my son and my wife, my son actually has a Tesla. My wife drove it, and she said it has a very different feel. And that's because she's driven gas-powered cars. So apparently when you drive a Tesla, you want to stop, there's no brake pedal. You come off the electricity, so to speak, and it stops of its own inertia. So I usually tell people that early on, I completely misjudged Tesla. I thought it was a car company. And then when the market revaluated it, then I thought, oh no, he's actually doing energy. But then I realized Tesla, people were valuing it more than Exxon, Shell, whatever your favorite energy company. And then when they started to cast a vision about how AI and mobility will happen and how that will affect our daily lives in the future, I realized, there's a complete transformation of that industry that's AI based. Likewise in healthcare. And I usually tell the young people there will be a day when the next generation of med students, they will only know how to practice medicine AI assist or maybe even AI driven a lot of primary work. Just like one day there will be young people, they've only driven a Tesla. They've never driven a gas powered car. So I think that's the journey we're on. So good luck to everyone.
Thank you.